Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the next in my series on podcast production. I'm doing this because I'm assuming there are some of you out there who maybe listen to Badass Agile or listen to the Fuse Chamber podcast and are thinking, hey, I'd like to do a podcast myself. If that's the case, there is tons of room for new voices, guys. You got to do this. And I want you to be able to have the best sounding, the best quality podcast you possibly can. So for me, though, the podcasts I do are not based on having a bunch of guests sitting around a table in a room. My podcasts are just me. And that's the way I want them. I want it to be your badass coach. I want to be someone who's there whispering in your ear, passing on the wisdom, the inspiration, the guidance, the support. So I don't have guests on my show. So the audio of my voice alone is obviously way more important because that's the only thing you're going to hear. There's no music going on in the background. No clanking of dishes or running of the refrigerator would really be acceptable. I want to be in tight. I want to be right in your ear. And I want you to be able to hear it when you're driving in the car. I want it to have impact and sound badass. I want it to sound aggressive, right? So I'm going to show you the tools that I use to get that effect. The first thing that's important is assuming you have a great sounding recording, which I've got a decent sounding recording here. Let's have a listen. We groan as we watch our customers seek perfection before they build, but think nothing of it. Right. It's a good sounding mic using a condenser microphone, which I definitely recommend for single voice or solo casts, as they call them. And what I have to do now, though, is clean up the audio because, number one, there's a lot of accidental noises. Number two, I find breath noises are really distracting. And number three, any kind of accidents or edits that I have to make, you have to do that before you polish the mix and send it out, into the world. So I'm assuming you've gotten to the step where if you saw my video on microphone selection, I quickly describe condenser versus dynamic. I also quickly describe my setup for isolating sound. So what you want to end up with is a nice, clean recording at a decent volume with the minimum amount of nasty background room noise. So we're assuming you've gotten that far. If you need help with that, reach out and ask me a question. I'm happy to explain it to you. But the videos are also there, and there's tons of resources on the internet as well. So let's do cleanup. So you're going to need to hopefully your recordings are in some kind of an audio editor. I use Logic. You can use GarageBand. You can use Audacity. You can use Sonar. You can use Reaper. Is a really great low cost digital audio workstation. So is PreSonus Studio One, Pro Tools, whatever you want. Adobe has got a quite very popular tool as well. So choose your poison. They all work pretty much the same way. And what I'm going to do is quickly insert onto my audio track a plugin called Waves Debreath. So it's made by a manufacturer called Waves. The plugin itself is called Debreath. All right. Now here's the way it works. The top window shows you kind of the breath energy, if you will. And any purple spike that is above the white line, it's going to call a breath. And then in the bottom window, any green spike that is below the white line will also be qualified as a breath. So let's watch it in action and see. Here we go. We groan as we watch our customers seek perfection before they build, but think nothing of it. There's one. If we refuse to advance without an agile framework fully in. All right, so let's look in a little deeper. So if I turn this off, here's what you hear. There's a breath right at the beginning. There it is. And then there's another breath right here, I think, after the word build. And then there's another one here after the word advance. Let's listen. We groan as we watch our customers seek perfection before they build, but think nothing of it. If we refuse to advance without an agile framework. All right, 3 breaths in all. Let's turn on the breath reduction tool. We groan as we watch our customers seek perfection before they build, but think nothing of it if we refuse to advance without an agile framework. So it removed the first, it did not remove the first one, but removed the second and third. Let's watch the tool in action, all right? Before they build, but think nothing of. So this white streak shows that it caught it as a breath. The purple's above the white line, the green is below the white line. Let's watch it again. Before they build, but think nothing of it. Purple's above the white line, green is below. Now, if I were to take this fader and move it way up, the purple would not be above the white line, and it won't catch it as a breath. Let's watch. Perfection before they build, but think nothing of it. See, that time there's no white streak here, meaning it did not catch this as a breath. So you need to set this so that it catches most of your breaths, but you want to set it so that it doesn't catch things like C sounds, H sounds, things like that. So it occasionally registers some false positives, right? So if I bring this way, way down here, and likewise move this one, I want to say I'm going to move this one down too. Let's see if it catches something that it shouldn't. If we refuse to advance without an agile framework fully in place, I think Agile wants to be simple. That's this week on the Badass Agile. There we go. Refuse to advance without an agile framework in place. There we go. But an agile framework in place. See what happens? It catches all of these things that are not breaths, right? So you want a nice balance between the two. I have one set up as a preset, which once you find a bunch of settings that you like, all you do is go into your plugin and say, save to new file. In this case, I've got one ready to go. I just click on it. And it's got some of my favorite settings, though lately I'm finding I'm having to boost it up a little bit. If we refuse to advance without an agile framework fully in place, I think. So that one was perfect. Caught the breath, didn't catch the word framework. Excellent. All right. Now, what if it doesn't catch the breath like this very first one? We groan. All right. Well, that one it may have caught because it may not have caught because it's at the very, very beginning of the track. This utility needs a few minutes to process audio. So I'll try moving it down, see what happens. We groan as we watch our customer. Perfect. See how it caught that? Now, the other option is just cut it out. Whoop. There we go. Now, it doesn't even have to look for it. We groan as we watch our customers seek perfection before they build, but think nothing of it. Awesome. So this tool will usually get about 80% of them right. What about the ones that it doesn't get? You're going to have to cut those out yourself. How do you cut them out? Well, all you have to do, you'll get used to the way they look. They kind of have a breath has a certain look. Once you've learned to spot them, or you can hear them, you just zoom in on them and you either delete them. But the problem with deleting it is that it will leave a hole where the breath used to be. And that makes a bit of an unnatural sound. Have a listen. Our customers seek perfection before they build, but think nothing of. A little bit of a gap there. So you have some choices. Either don't leave a hole, which would look like this. All right, so we'll grab the breath. And this time, rather than hitting delete, we'll use, in Logic, they call it delete and move. Now, your DAW may call it delete and close hole, or delete and remove silence, or delete and remove hole. But if you click delete and move, what it'll do is take the breath away and it will pinch the distance shut between those two sections. So now it should sound more natural. Before they build, but think nothing of it. Say, perfect. Seek perfection before they build, but think nothing of it. If we were, you would never know that there was a breath there, and you would never know that I did any editing. Perfectly seamless. All right. Now, there are times when removing the breath, though, will ruin the flow between the two sections of dialogue. So let's have a listen to this one.
If we refuse to advance without an agile.
So I want to remove that breath. But watch what happens when I do delete and move. Listen to how it sounds.
If we refuse to advance without an agile.
Did you catch that? They sound kind of squished together.
If we refuse to advance without an agile.
Advance and without are too close together. So you have a choice. Either don't use delete and move. Just use regular delete.
If we refuse to advance without an agile.
But now it's got that audible kind of hole in it. What you can do is smooth that gap out by using something called a fade. There's a tool here called the fade tool that I can use to just draw a fade out and a fade in, which will make the transition like a little smoother. It's kind of like smoothing over a corner.
If we refuse to advance without an agile.
A little less noticeable. All right. Now at the end, we're going to apply another stage of noise reduction that will completely remove that. So you don't really need to do that. But all in all, between removing the breaths that this tool doesn't catch and then removing the boo-boos like this one, check this out. You see all the space here? That's where I kind of stop to pause for something. Cough. Breathe, right? So all that junk has to go. So that's because when I start rolling, I don't want to stop and restart it just every time I make a mistake. So usually I'll leave a long pause in there to take a good breath, have a drink of water. Or if I straight up make a mistake, I'll say, hold up, take two. And that's how I know I've got to go back and fix something. So I'll usually remove the offending part. Delete and move. It's like it never happened. Let's get that breath out of there just in case. All right.
Be simple. That's this week on the Badass Agile podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back.
Beautiful. Okay. So once you've done all the cleaning up all the way throughout the file, now you'll notice that the file itself is in a whole bunch of little segments. And the only problem with that is that if you want to move this around for some reason, move it to another track or drag it around, like you see how maybe I want to left align this. I want to slide it all the way back so that it's at the very beginning of the audio. So I grab it and I drag it. Well, it only takes that one part with it, which is going to suck. So if I want this to be all one great big finished file again, like this one, I have to take the entire thing, pardon me, and say file, in this case, bounce track in place. It may be called merge or it may be called process in your application. They kind of all do the same thing with different names. So when I say bounce track in place, I can either make a new track so that I can keep the original, or replace track, which means blow away the old one. I don't need it anymore and make me one nice, completely consolidated track. But whatever you do, don't turn this on, because if I turn this on, it will bypass all of the hard work that this guy was doing, the deep breath. I don't want that. I want that to stay there. So you definitely, when you choose to process this track or bounce it, make sure you choose do not bypass effect plugin. Okay. And the last thing that we want to do once we've done all that processing is to add something called noise reduction. Waves has another great tool, so simple to use. And by the way, they're not the only ones. So iZotope is another manufacturer that makes great audio restoration and cleaning plugins. You should check them out. I just find this one is so much easier to use. So assuming you haven't done something truly silly, like leave the, record right next to the refrigerator or turn the dishwasher on in the middle of your podcast recording, the noise level in your audio should be pretty low. But let's have a listen to mine. Let's find a spot where there's not too much talking. Take a really good listen. This would be a great time to turn your speakers way up if you can. Just listen for any hiss or hum. All right, you hear that, right? Okay. So let's grab that section. And let's just repeat it over and over. Okay, so not only is there hiss and hum in there, a very small amount, but there's also like me scratching my chin and a whole bunch of other noises. Let's take this and move it from 0, the noise reduction level, up to like about 18 or so. Let's have another listen now. Right, that's with. This is without. With. Without. You hear the difference? Okay, let's turn it up even further. It's like almost entirely gone, right? This is with. Without. With. Just totally takes it out. Now, does that affect the voice, like the actual, so turn your speakers back down a bit. Does it affect the quality of the recorded vocal? Have a listen. So this is with the plugin off.
Execute these frameworks across the enterprise to
And now I'll punch it in.
Absolute perfection. You need everyone in your enterprise to be an elite player.
Off.
The cost of hiring, maintaining, and keeping elite players in every seat in the house
And on.
Every seat in the house is also incredible.
So it really doesn't affect the quality of the recording, but it definitely rips the noise out. Have a listen again. On. Off. On.
So why do we do this?
Off. On.
So why do we do this? Well, I'm of the mind that subtlety.
So I usually find setting this to around somewhere between 10 and 18 is perfect. If you crank it all the way up, it definitely removes all the noise, but it also removes a ton of clarity from the vocal. Have a listen.
That subtlety, complexity, frameworks, they really only empower.
That's on. This is off.
They really only empower one thing. I hate to say it, the cash register.
Put it back in.
Cash register. You know it, and I know it. There's great money in certification. There's great money in these frameworks and these methods that are proprietary.
Now let's take it off.
That are proprietary. That we've.
Did you notice how it removes some of the fullness and the bass from it? So you really don't want to go up to 100%. It will remove more noise, but will also negatively affect the vocal. I find that setting it somewhere between 10 and 20, just about perfect every time. Now, this assumes, again, that you don't have, like, no one started, you're recording this in the garage and someone starts the car. It's not going to remove that sound for you. But if you've done a careful job of keeping things quiet and all you're hearing is some furnace noise or like the breeze outdoors or the sound of me scratching my chin, it totally will remove that and it'll do a great job with it. So that will help you get nice, clean, professional sounding tracks. Check out those two plugins. They're not the only ones in the world, but if you look, you can get these on sale for, less than 30 US each. So I think they're tremendous value, and I definitely recommend checking them out. Thanks, guys. Catch you next time.